should I add? I guess now I'm open to questions.
Hi, Max, it's Theresa.
Oh, hi.
Hi there. What I'd like to do is invite some of the attendees to raise their hand in the panel there, and then I can open their mic so that they can ask you their question live. So if anyone has a question for Max, if you'll raise your hand, use the raise your hand feature, I will open your mic and give you the opportunity to vocalize your question. Let's see. Allison, I have opened your mic if you would like to ask Max a question.
Hi, Max. Thank you for this.
Hey.
It's absolutely brilliant. I'm learning a lot. I'm just trying to get my head. I suppose I've been working with chocolate since I was a child, basically. Obviously tempering and as a chocolatier, and then for the last 7 years as a bean to bar maker. But I'm in Ireland, so I'm kind of self-taught, I guess. So good. I think I've come up with a lot of my own ways of doing things. So it's really interesting to hear what's different. But I'm trying to get my head around this 24% fat content on a milk chocolate, like the total fat that you would recommend. So if I was putting in, say, like I use a 30 kilo CocoaTown conch refiner for doing my batches. So like generally the dark chocolate, obviously they have more nibs, less cocoa butter. But in order to get my milk chocolate at the right viscosity when I'm pouring, because I don't use any emulsifiers, I'm adding more like 4 to 5 kilos, which is like a sixth of the entire batch for cocoa butter. So I think I'm probably making up for my lack of emulsifiers with extra cocoa butter. So I end up with a much kind of closer to 30% fat content when you take the nibs.
Well, I mean, the 24% is it's the total. It's not the cocoa butter percentage. It's the total that includes the whole milk powder you've added and the percentage of the cocoa liqueur. But Allison, the one general belief, the one guiding thing is if you don't use emulsifiers, it's all about temperature. So the maximum I said of which you should go higher. If you can keep your temperature high, that is one of the ways people who don't use emulsifiers get around not using emulsifiers. Another one is when I brought up the milk fats, is milk fat has a different property than a cocoa fat. It doesn't do the same coating and final suspended. It's not it doesn't have the same properties as cocoa butter. So I would suggest try keeping temperatures a little bit higher and try adding the milk fat, high cream fat, again, powder, instead of the cocoa butter. Now, the reason why, this is something that the Swiss are really, Penny, the temperature that the temperature guideline says, people say around 55 degrees Celsius, but I take mine a little higher than that personally. But going back to you, Allison, is the reason for this, and like I said, the Swiss are sticklers for this, is that any excessive amount of butter you add ruins the majesty of the conching process. Is you do not get the release of the bad flavors, you do not get the addition of new flavors. So you should, like I said, try a higher temperature, try keeping everything at a higher temperature, and then also experiment with I'll tell you with the two versions of milk fat.
And do you think the emulsifier, like trying with an emulsifier, would mean that I would end up having to use less cocoa butter?
Oh, absolutely. the reason why emulsifiers became part of the chocolate process was because the most expensive ingredient is cocoa butter, and they wanted to find a way to use less.
Yeah.
So the main motivation for the existence of emulsifiers originally was so you would use less cocoa butter. What I strongly suggest is you don't use soy-based lecithin. I say, I'm giving away another one of my secrets, not really. 𝗪𝗏. Do you guys, have you ever heard of that company, Allison?
No.
Okay, 𝗪𝗏 has two amazing emulsifiers. It's an AMP and a PGPR. Now, I don't know if you know the properties of emulsifiers. Lecithin is, it helps with viscosity. It helps make chocolate run smoother. It helps the mouth. But when you go beyond a certain point, it creates the opposite effect. It becomes anathema to the reason why you're putting it in. AMP and PGPR don't do that. So I have found that these two things have helped me in ways that you can't even imagine. You add the AMP to get the viscosity, and then once you have the viscosity at the level you want, use a PGPR to adjust it. So my chocolate does not melt at room temperature. My chocolate does not melt even in warmer temperatures. But the second it touches your mouth, it's, yeah, I'll type in the name. The second it touches your mouth, it melts. And it's for me, it was a game changer. I hate using that term. It was a phenomenal help in making a chocolate that my investors love.
Thank you. Would you add that in? So do you add the emulsifier in, well, like at the end of the refining process, or does it get refined in the whole time?
Well, yeah, you want to keep it for as late as possible because of what it does. It's even more extreme than the cocoa butter. However, you can add a little bit, tiny bits. I mean, it's amazing how much, Allison, you know, when you're using, you know, you're using 0.5%, you're putting like this little scoop of it in, is you go even lower than that, is you add the emulsifiers when you direly need them, but in tiny amounts. So let's say you've done all the steps that I told you about, and the milk's in there and it's jamming, you're heating it up and it's jamming, you add a little more cocoa butter and it's jamming. That's when I'll put in, I use, let me tell you what my recipe is. I use 4% of my recipe is the AMP, and 0.4% of the recipe is the AMP, and 0.3 is a PGPR. At the first point of irreparable jamming in the mélangeur, I put in 1/5 of 0.3 of AMP, and that helps. That helps. You want to keep the PGPR for the end because that's, like I said, adjusting the final viscosity of the chocolate. But the emulsifier, never ever, you'll go online and you'll see these bloggers and they put the emulsifier in the beginning. That's the worst thing you can do. That is worse than adding all the chocolate fat. But a little bit, the standard 𝗪𝗏 technique is in the let's see where it is. I have to, yes, you can add 0.3% of the 0.3% of the AMP right before you start to conch, is the way they do it. Yeah, so Allison, I mean, again, there is something I find very noble in not using emulsifiers. It takes a real craft for somebody to do that. So I don't want to corrupt you, but I think that you'll find 𝗪𝗏 isn't that much of a compromise.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if you call 𝗪𝗏 in Denmark, you people, if you call 𝗪𝗏 in Denmark, what you want to do is you want to speak to Jürgen. I'll give you his name. Jürgen's been doing chocolate for over 30+ years. I consider him the wise man on the mountain. He really, really knows chocolate to a level. I've spoken with the people at 𝗪𝗏𝗁. I've spoken with people who are considered or call themselves master chocolate makers, and Jürgen is by far the best source for any questions you have, and he's very, very amenable.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Let me get you.
Thank you, Allison. Now I would like to invite Nicholas to ask his question. I'm going to open his mic. Nicholas, you want to ask Max your question?
Thank you. Hey, Max, thank you so much for your time today. This has been really valuable.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I'm glad.
I would, oh, yeah, this is genius. I would be interested in your commentary, your experience on using different types of milk product, whether it's cream, it is whole milk powder, it's non-fat milk powder, perhaps if you've tried malted milk powder and maybe even alternative soy milk, other types of alternative milk powders. Kind of what's been your experience?
My obsession is very myopic, and I wanted to take the concept of the milk chocolate and within the parameters, kind of like writing a haiku, is staying within the parameters of what traditional milk chocolate would be, is try to make a milk chocolate that dark chocolate lovers will love. The only thing that I've experimented with is skim versus whole. And the one thing I found is that it's a harder chocolate. You have to find ways of compensating for the lack of fat, either by adding more cocoa butter, but when I did that, it became oily. So I would suggest adding, this brings back the one thing I want to talk about, which is going back to also Allison, controlling the fat. Nicholas, I would strongly suggest if you can find high fat milk powder, take skim milk, use that, and wait till as far towards the end as you can to add in the high fat, because that will enhance the exact same thing that the delay of the emulsifier and the delay of the cocoa butter does. It brings out more flavor, and it actually helps with viscosity significantly. It becomes more of the chocolate that will snap, won't melt in your hand. Well, won't melt in your hand if you hold it for a normal amount of time, but in your mouth. So to answer your question, I have not. I really, really wanted to, in working with Fair Oaks, I really wanted to use this, but because our goal is to make a lactose-free milk chocolate, they weren't able to make a lactose-free because of the fact that a lot of these high fat come from lactose. The lactose is a necessary incorporate part of it. So I have not.
Thank you.
Yeah. But Nicholas, what I'll do is
Thank you, Max. Thank you, Nicholas.
I have some documents relating to this especially from Beckett, who's an amazing source that I can give to you. If you send your email to CocoaTown, I can give you those documents. So you at least have something, so you're not, going blindly.
Okay, next I would like to invite V. V, you had your hand raised early on in the talk, and I'm gonna open your mic and allow you to ask your question. Let's see.
V, your mic's on mute.
Yeah.
Hi.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Hello.
Okay. I was just want to ask you one question about the flavor and the percentage of the cocoa, which you mentioned is taste is overpower and buttery.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
When you put the cocoa, the flavor, when you add too much cocoa, yeah.
Yeah. When you add too much cocoa butter, the main purpose for cocoa butter is the wonderful thing about chocolate, all chocolate, but with milk chocolate, there's one more ingredient, is none of these ingredients should create a homogeneous, smooth product that has a unique flavor that is more than the sum of its parts.
Okay.
And the way you get to that point is it's all about the relationship between the solids and the cocoa butter. If you add the cocoa butter in too soon, part of the process of getting to the point of the ideal flavor is to let the cocoa release its bad flavors and also develop new flavors and release its moisture, as well as the sugar has to release its moisture, and as well as the milk has to release. The highest amount of moisture comes from the milk. If you add in the cocoa butter too soon, it envelops all of them, and all that stuff is trapped inside your chocolate. So now you have a chocolate that is too wet, too acidic, hasn't developed new taste, and no matter how long you conch for, you've already trapped it inside this blanket of cocoa butter. So the longer you can wait, however, you don't want to put too little. That's why I was saying the 17% at the beginning, because then that could actually cause a rapid demoisturizing of the cocoa, and that's bad too. But that's beside the point. The most important thing is very few, especially blogs and online, talk about the importance to delay all the cocoa butter, and it's for that reason. You don't want to prematurely cover stuff and lock it in, lock in the flavors, the bad flavors.
So we wish I understand how to put it the last minute.
No, yeah, well, again, let me, I'm gonna pull out what I actually must confess and say that I do what Jürgen told me to do. And here's what Jürgen told me to do. You mix all the solid parts.
Yes.
And you add no emulsifier. You add enough cocoa fat to get to a total fat content of 17%. That was what I was saying.
Okay.
You refine that. Again, in the mélangeur, you're refining and mixing and conching at the same time. But so you put it in the conch, you have it go. And now what I suggest is taste it. If it still tastes like the original granular sandiness that you began with, keep going. When you see when you have a visceral change and it's getting smoother, then add a second part of the fat, the cocoa fat, to get it up to 23–24%. Keep
okay,
going.
Okay.
You want to make sure, again, that temperatures do not drop. And at that point, that's when you can start adding minuscule amounts of emulsifier. Again, I'm not a fan of lecithin. If you're going to do lecithin, do the sunflower. Don't do soy for many reasons. Does that clarify or no?
Yes. Actually, I had another question.
I had
another question. You mentioned warm the sugar.
Yes.
So warm the sugar when you put it in an oven. That's the way you mean to warm it this way, or how to warm it?
Yes.
It's not
yes.
come. It's not come caramel. It's not come caramels or
no,
something.
No, caramelization of sugar it actually is one of those things where people worry about that. But caramelization, you have to be really hot. I believe it's like 270 degrees to caramelize. So if you keep it at around temperature that I do, which is I heat it at if it's normal sugar, I heat it at 120 degrees Celsius, 250 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's coarse sugar, I do it at 100 degrees Celsius. I do it for 4 minutes, and it doesn't change the flavor. If you want to get a little bit of a Maillard effect, you can go higher. But again, I don't know anybody but Americans who like that thing.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I have I think I have
Thank you, V, for your question.
Thank you.
I have a couple more with their hands raised, Max. So I'm going to open the mic for Eric.
Okay.
Eric, go ahead and ask Max your question.
Hello. Thank you for very interesting discussions. I have a question. The chocolate that we make is based on oat powder, not milk powder at all.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What?
The chocolate that we make is based on oat powder as opposed to milk powder. And we've seen that regardless of the addition of lecithin, the chocolate becomes much thicker. And what we also see is that when we try to temper it, then it acts as if it's over tempered. So we need to increase the temperature quite a bit to get something that's remotely practical to use. The question that we have is really trying to understand why would the chocolate behave as if it's over crystallized by adding the oat powder? Maybe this is sort of far away from what you're experienced and what you're used to, but sort of from a theoretical point of view, could it be that we have more crystallization being formed by the addition of the oat powder, but or could it be something else?
Yeah, I mean, this is beyond what I've done. I'm just trying to find what a colleague of mine who has done it. Let's see what if I can find something about it. Give me a second, because he. Let's see. Got it. No, I can't find it. I'm gonna send you information. I'm gonna send you the information once I can find it. It's not something that I've ever worked with, but I mean, obviously, it has something to do. It has to have something to do with either what the it has something to do with the characteristics of the oat, for sure. Let me see if I want to find this.
If you can't find it now, then you can send it to it's Nordic Chocolate. That's the name of the company.
Yeah, let me see if I can. I don't want to keep everybody. Let me see.
Eric, if you'll do us a favor and put your question in the chat as well, we will get Max to answer the questions in print and share it with you that way as well.
Okay, I'll do that. And yeah. I'm also thinking that maybe since you're talking about the order of adding milk powder, if perhaps that could be something that has to do with it, that we add, we don't add everything in the end. We add it sort of in the process while we're adding the fat.
I'm sorry, you broke out there for a second. What'd you say?
I was thinking about the order in which we add the powder. I mean, if we compare it to what you've just told us about the order of adding the milk powder, we don't add the oat powder all in the end. We do it sort of together with the fat.
Well, yeah, I mean, the oat powder, what is the fat content of oat powder?
We don't know.
Because that to me is, aside from the actual inherent properties of it, I would want to know what, how much, I mean, the nibs, let's say, are you adding cocoa powder or are you adding cocoa nibs? What do you start with?
We're adding nibs.
Okay, so that's, you have half of that is fat. How much cocoa butter do you put in, percentage-wise?
It's 23% approximately.
Okay, and then milk, and then you don't use any milk powder. The oat is everything, right?
Yes, it's completely dairy-free.
Okay, so I think it's critical that you, going back to what I said about the minimum amounts of fat, I think it's very important for you to find well, how much percentage is your cocoa liquor, roughly?
It's 38% approximately.
Your cocoa liquor.
38%.
Okay, so that's 18%, and the butter was how much, you said?
23.
Okay, so you're fine. You're fine with the amount of fat you have in it. I do recommend that you add, you don't delay, you keep on doing what you're doing, is you wouldn't want to wait to add that later. The milk powder, okay, I'm going to pull back for a second, is I add the sugar with the cocoa because I want to maximize that special relationship that sugar has of stealing aroma from the milk chocolate. My milk chocolate has a very, very high chocolatey taste, even though the amount of cocoa is less. I then add the milk powder because that part, relationship with everything, there is nothing magical. It's all about, at that point, getting rid of the moisture. Do you know what your moisture content is of your oat also?
We don't know it by heart. No.
Do you prep it in any way?
No.
And
No.
and what granular size is it when you put into the mélangeur?
Powder.
It's powder size. I don't know.
Like
if it's
powder, like flour?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's just like milk. So, okay, I'm going to look into this. This is very interesting. I want to figure out what's going on with your the oat milk. There.
Vi har en specifikation på allting.
Thank you very much.
No.
I'll send the question in the chat also.
Okay,
Thank-
excellent, excellent.
Thank you.
Okay,
right,
Ken, when is
Eric,
milk
thank
powder
you.
added? Pardon me?
No, go ahead. And then I have a couple more with their hands raised. Yeah,
yes,
go ahead.
sure,
and-
sure,
and get some chat. Yeah.
No, Allison, I think you should temper it like, try tempering it like a milk chocolate. Okay, when do you add the milk? I add it right after the sugar. I go, again, cocoa nibs, 2 hours, try to get rid of that real pungent, horrible smells, keep it warm, add in the warm sugar, and then have that go to the point where you start to see a granular decrease, a tastable, and then add the powdered milk. Do it slowly, the powdered milk. Oh, sorry, add in the fat first to get to 17%, then add in the powdered, the leche.
All right, I'm gonna open the mic for Nathan and allow Nathan to ask his question. Nathan, go ahead and unmute your mic and ask Max your question.
Thanks, Max. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hey.
Hey, thanks. This has been very helpful. Hey, I've assumed that the shelf life of my milk chocolate depended on the use by date of my milk powder, but I've read some who believe that the cocoa butter actually helped preserve the milk.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. You're as soon as it becomes, as soon as you become a homogeneous product, tempered properly, all the ingredients inside the chocolate are protected by the cocoa butter.
so what do you think the milk chocolate has a different shelf life than dark chocolate? I mean, dark chocolate's pretty long lasting.
From my experience, if stored in low humidity and I would say cellar temperatures, I have never had a milk chocolate go bad on me, and I've kept milk chocolate in my cellar for over a year. So again, this is from my own personal experience. I have not seen any reaction. If you do everything correctly, it's amazing how long. And I actually feel that it gets better with age.
Okay. Well,
as long as it's not too. The most important thing is you don't want to get the temperature, but more important than that, you don't want the humidity affecting it.
yeah, I've got a cool room that is below 65 Fahrenheit all the time, and it's dehumidified, so it's around 30% or below. So okay.
I think you're going to be. Fine. And what I suggest doing is, give it a try. See if you if you do come up with something. If it does get bad, but again, never with me at all. Once
Okay.
it's made. Otherwise, and how long do you keep your powder for?
Well, when I was first making milk, I'd get to the 9-month mark of the year use by date on the milk, and I just order more.
And how long was usually your shelf life when you got it?
Oh, the shelf life of the milk was usually a year.
Yeah, that's standard. Yeah. Okay, good. Because some people actually do shorter, and that's I think that's just them trying to sell more milk. But yeah, if you keep it properly stored, it's a year.
And so it was the stuff that I'd make right when I got the new milk was fine, but as I was getting to the end of it 4 or 6 months later, I didn't know if that just meant that chocolate wasn't going to have the same use by date. So, okay, this is helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I do find that if you can delay presentation of chocolate by at least 2 weeks, there is a noticeable difference in it. And I know this is different than what you said, but right off the mold, never serve it off the mold.
Yeah, I always age at least 4 weeks.
Okay, good. And then also, one thing everybody should know is once you mold, do not put it right away in a refrigerator. You don't want to accelerate reaching that coolness. Let it sit in ambient temperature. If you're in a really hot environment, put it in an unheated oven, somewhere where you have a sort of, I don't want to say hermetically sealed, but somewhere where there's a cooling effect. But putting it right into the fridge is no, don't do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad that you. Most people that I know don't age it as long as you do. I'm glad you do. That's really
Yeah,
good.
I think it ends up tasting better after
Oh,
the end.
Definitely does. But most people are impatient, you know.
Well, you can understand that, right?
Of course, my chocolate now, like my daughter.
All right.
Great thing.
Thank you, Nathan. Yes, thank you. I'm going to open the mic for Nico. Ask you to unmute your mic and ask Max your question.
Okay, Max, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you for all this information. It's been really helpful. You know, a lot of
Okay.
doubts are starting to get solved. And also, I would like to ask you about the type of milk. Is there any way to assess the quality for making milk chocolate about the dry milk? If it's spray dried or rolled dry, you talk about at the beginning. What's the difference? How one makes it better than the other one?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you have a reputable source, you're going to be fine. The wonderful thing about milk chocolate is on a fundamental level, it's very forgiving. When you get persnickety and you want to make, obviously, the more picky you are, the worse. But any again, standard, if you're powdered milk out in the market is going to work just fine. Now I'm going to pull up the technicality. The reason why actually, I'm going to put it, the reason why the roller is better, I'm going to put it in an email because it's actually kind of lengthy. It has to do with the freeing of both the lactose and, well, the different types of sugar, of sucrose and glucose in the milk powder. You have more, there's more freedom created by having it be roller.
Okay, thank you. That makes it for my question.
But yeah, but you won't. Yeah, I mean, right now, where do you buy your milk powder from, if anywhere?
No, I just buy the store one from you. I'm just starting my chocolate business, so I'm just trying different sources and looking for seeing the results of different things. But I'm just going to the store and get it done from there.
Where are you based?
In Spain.
Where?
Madrid.
Madrid. Vaya a la playa to the Barcelonas, right? Yeah, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Like I said, the one thing that I envy is if you can get the roller, but the other thing too is if you can get the milk fat as well, to play with that as well.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. We can get here 1% fat milk and then buy.
Yeah, but butter oil is what is also known as anhydrous milk fat. AMF is also known as buttermilk, and it not only helps with creating a more smooth, milky. It depends on, if you want a real milky flavor, but also it has phenomenal properties to help with the ultimate texture of the chocolate as well.
Okay, well, great. Thank you very much.
And yeah. Some people also use buttermilk powder, but okay.
Okay, I have a question for you, Max.
I can barely hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay. You said about the maximum 24% fat Can you just explain a little bit clearly, how do you calculate the percentage of the fat in the
Okay.
chocolate?
Okay, so you got to have the labels, but cocoa butter is 100% fat. So whatever amount of cocoa butter you're putting in, the percentage is equal to the percentage. Different regions, different types of bean have a different percentage, but if you don't know what yours is, and surprisingly, a lot of the plantation owners don't know what their percentage is, just earmark 50%. So if you're using, again, 12% of your recipe is cocoa liquor, not cocoa powder that has been, the fat's been extruded, but the actual, like a nib. If you're using 12%, then it means 6% is fat. So now you have the let's say it's 30% cocoa butter. So 30% plus 6%. That's 36%. The milk, it varies, but there are actually rules to that determine the maximum amount of fat, the maximum minimum amount of fat. But the general range of milk fat in milk powder is between 26% and 42%. Mine, the one I use, is 28.75%. So for the sake of simplicity, like I was saying, let's say 30% is milk fat. So if you're using 100, if you're using 100 grams, then it means 33% or 30% of that 100 grams is fat grams. So whatever the percentage of your total milk, you multiply it by the percentage of what the fat is, and that will give you, so if 20% of your recipe is milk powder and 30% of the milk powder is fat, 20%, 30% of 20% is 6%. So now you have 30% butter, cocoa butter, 6% from the nibs, and 6% from the milk. So that comes to a total of 42% fat. So the fat content in oat powder is 7%. Well, that's good to know.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that will help, a lot of our customers.
Oh yeah, wet milk. No. The biggest enemy to milk chocolate processing is moisture. If you even like wiping a dish and you get a few drops in anything, I actually will throw it away, even just a few drops. You want to avoid going above around 0.2% or 0.02 percent moisture will ruin, because what happens then is it breaks the integrity, it ruins the integrity of the cocoa butter. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, if you're making truffles, the range of total fat is yes, Sid, I add all the milk at once, in the sense of it's a one process, but I do it very slowly. If you're doing, let's say you're doing 1,000 grams only, it should take you more than 20 minutes to get the tiny bit of the milk into it. It should be a very, very slow process of putting the milk in. So it is at once, but it's not one clump. If you throw it all in, it'll jam. It'll jam the simple machines. So the question about what was that question again? Total fat. Yeah, I'm gonna the total fat should be between 33% and 55%. That said, if you go down to 30%-ish, you're gonna be okay. Try not to go off the crazy end above 55. How many hours after adding the milk? I personally do 72 hours. Another thing though too is about the fat range, Ken, is it's also important that the ratio of the milk fat to the total fat content is between 12 and 32%, because this is milk chocolate. And that's an important piece to have too. So if you're using skim milk, you're going to be changing significantly how much milk, how much cocoa butter or other fats you're adding, because now you have something with zero fat.
Hi, Max. I have someone else with their hand raised. Ning, I'm going to open your mic and feel free to ask your question.
Hey, Max. Thanks for sharing. I've been told previously that the percentage of how milk chocolate is labeled, for example, 40%, would include the nibs, cocoa butter, which is just a cocoa content, but would the milk fat add to the the content that is labeled, to the percentage that's labeled for milk chocolate? Thanks.
Yes, yeah. The fat on the label of a regulation fat is the total fat. So it's the fat that comes from the nibs, the fat that comes from the cocoa butter, and the fat that comes from the milk powder. And if you add any other things that have any part of fat, that too, it's a total. Yeah, well, you include everything.
Max, sorry, I don't mean the total fat content. I meant the, if it says milk with a percentage following that, it doesn't say cocoa, yes, or it doesn't say fat.
Yes, when it says, does it say milk or milk solid? Just milk?
It just says milk and then with a percentage, right?
Yeah.
Milk chocolate with whatever
yes, when you're doing, there should be two things. You should never see a chocolate bar that says milk and then fat. It would be milk, cocoa butter, and in that case, milk powder is all the milk solids. So that's both. It's everything that's not the water. So that includes the fat. Yes. Yeah, and if you add cream, if you add anything that's milk based, that would be included in the milk. That.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Nico, one of the most complicated foods in the world is milk, and what protein does is there is a mile-long list of what the proteins do. So yes, it does affect it. I'm going to put that on my things to add. Okay. Nicholas, can you tell me again, what was the other question that I was going to answer for you? Oh, how much fat? So you mean when you're saying the non-cocoa butter fat, are you talking about anything in particular? Are you talking vegetable or milk or milk-based? Okay, well, vegetable, legally you can't go above 5% for most of the world. Milk fat, yes. If you end up, you can't replace cocoa butter with milk fat. Okay, sorry, let me back this up. To do what cocoa butter does, only cocoa butter can do it. The actual structure of milk fat is completely different. I think I have something written down about that. So yes, if you try the, let's say the total of 33% to 55% of the milk fat is you put too much of milk fat as opposed to cocoa butter, now your tempering will be thrown awry. So again, that's why that's the importance of the ratio between milk fat and total fat. So yeah, so the balance is that ratio that I gave. Did I share it with everybody? Yeah, it's your milk fat to total fat content should be between 12% and 32% for that reason.
So Max, I think everybody had a good time. I know the time flies fast when we are having fun. I believe it's already 12 o'clock. We are right on the dot.
Oh, but we can, if people want to ask more, I can,
Yeah, so
I
that's
can-
I'm going to ask the people, will they want to hang out like 5 more minutes or should we close?
I mean, as long as they need, we're here this one time and I made sure that I kept everything open.
Okay. So,
Sorry, there was one person who asked a good bean to bar book. Can you elaborate on this? Do you want a good book explaining the business side or the actual creation of it, the making of bean to bar? The machines, because there are different books that focus on different things. Yes, Eric, like I said, I'm gonna look through everything and talk to one friend of mine who I believe has information on that, but definitely we can definitely discuss that. I want to figure it out. I want to figure out this whole oatmeal.
Okay, Isabel has raised her hand, so I'm gonna open the mic and allow Isabel to ask her question. Isabel, unmute yourself and ask Max your question.
Hi, I want to know the temperature for conching.
Oh, the temperature for conching, the rule of thumb is to keep it around 55 degrees Celsius. I go higher, personally. And what you want to do is the most important thing is whatever temperature you pick, you want to try to keep it uniformly through the entire process. Fluctuation in temperature is one of the best ways to ruin the process. So whatever you do, what I've done is even with a mélanger I made a heat blanket I put around, or I've even put hair dryers blowing at the bottom, so it's not direct, just blowing a little bit indirect heat to keep the base warm. So again, rule of thumb, 55 degrees Celsius. You can go higher, but it's about the keeping it steady.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Of course. So I'll tell you just a little more on that. I should get more specific about this. If you're below 40% Celsius, the viscosity of your mix is going to be way too high, and you won't have a proper mix. Above 75 degrees Celsius, your milk chocolate will start to caramelize. Well, not caramelize, the Maillard effect. You might like this again, but if you don't, if you want the European style or South American style, you want to make sure you don't go above 75%. Above 85% Celsius, you'll burn it. You want to so don't do that. Keeping it around 50%.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, yes. No, yes. So I'm sorry. Both creation and business part, yes. I'll get you the names of those books. I actually have to look on my bookshelf. I have a chart here that explains the profiles of different fats at different temperatures, but yes, yes. When you're using fat-free milk, you have to add some other form you have to add some form of fat to the process to keep it at least at the minimum 30%. Allison, what I did is I bought a pickaxe for my 50 kilo things. I go minor on it. It's true.
Any other questions, please? Or anybody else wants to ask a question? Oh, so, Max, somebody is asking about the temperature in the CocoaTown mélanger.
The what? Sorry?
When running at normal room temperature. Does anyone know the temperature the CocoaTown melanger stays steady at for conching running at room temperature? Or this is something I will just have to experience and record and base off of that?
Yeah, I mean, any melanger that doesn't have a heating source is going to fluctuate based on whether or not you've heated the particles, how much you're putting into it, and the temperature, the ambient temperature of your room, and the humidity. Nicholas, sorry again. I have to ask you, what was the question? That I lost it again. What was the question I was going to look up for you?
What are you talking to, Max?
Nicholas, I invited you to unmute your mic if you want to come on and talk to Max.
Every time I go into the process of remelting it.
Yeah, it's the same question that I had before. It's just this big issue that I make my chocolate, it comes out perfect from the melanger. I leave it aside for a couple of weeks, and then when I'm trying to remelt it, it just turns like into this texture of wet sand. Once
yeah,
I start...
like I said, how you don't heat it? How do you reheat it?
I reheat it really in a bain-marie, inverted bain-marie. Sorry, inverted.
I can't hear you. What?
With slowly, I mean, not simmering water, but with warm water on the bottom of a...
Oh, like a bain-marie.
Yeah, like a bain-marie. That's it. I didn't get the word. Yeah, but with a really slow setting, not boiling water. So it's really gentle, and it just like coagulates the chocolate. And once you start moving it, it starts to regain its fluidity. But again, you will still have like a thicker chocolate once you finish with all the removing process. I don't understand where all of these techniques comes from.
Yeah, the times that I did that, I reheated too quickly. The one thing is that you said you're using your 26% dried milk. That's good. What's your cocoa butter percentage?
Cocoa butter, I used to add around 25%.
Okay. I suggest try around 18%.
Okay.
Even lower.
So it's an issue with the amount of the cocoa fat then, no? It's too
I
much,
think
or...
from what I can guess is, like I said, the only experience I have with it is I heated it too quickly. But what this represents to me is it's a breakdown of the relationship that I said, because chocolate is solid particles suspended in fat.
Yep.
And if you come out with a grainy, sandy thing, it means that you've broken that. And I would just say try it. I mean, again, this is just I have no foundation for why I'm telling you this, but I would just try less cocoa butter.
Okay, I'm gonna try.
There's one. Hold on one second. There's one paper about the relationship. Let me see if I can find it. This one. There's the impact of fat. And let me just see what I'll share this paper too.
That would be great, because I haven't found anywhere any solution for this issue that I'm experiencing. I mean, not at least a scientific explanation of what's going on in there.
Yeah, like I said, I had this happen to me a long time ago, and it was, I said, and the only thing was, and the fact that you're reheating it in such a mild manner, that you shouldn't have that problem at all. So yeah, try less. How much emulsifier do you use?
I don't use any emulsifier.
Oh, you don't?
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever consider using it?
I mean, if this is going to be a big issue all the time, of course, because then it's impossible to retemperate it and to mold it. But for the industry that we are, like the Vinty bar, emulsifiers have like this bad of a...
And what do you use to what is your process? What machines do you have for the
I
mixing?
have just a regular 1.5 stone grinder, melanger. That's what I do. I just the same process. I add the nibs, I wet them, I wait until they are turned quite into a liquor. No? Then I start in the sugar and the milk fat mostly at the same time. And once I see that the cocoa mass is getting really, really thick, that's when I start adding the cocoa butter to just loosen it up and make it easier for the melanger. But that's it, the process. And then I wait probably about 48 hours. It depends on the taste. And then I just take it out of the melanger. But the issue is that when I want to remelt it again to temper it and put it into molds, it just gets really, really, really thick, like wet sand. And it's difficult.
Yeah, no. Like I said, that happened to me. The only time it happened was when I heated too quickly. So I would suggest playing with the cocoa butter and just humor a tiny amount of emulsifier.
Okay.
And then contacting me. Do me a favor. The next time it happens, send me a photo, even better a video.
I will send you a video of this.
So I can see exactly what's happening.
Okay, great. This is amazing.
Yeah, because
Max, Gavin has a question.
Sure, Gavin.
Do you heat up your mold before you dose your chocolate into the mold? Chiller temperatures and relative humidity % target. Rule of thumb, 100-gram bar, how many minutes in a chiller?
I don't heat my molds. Wait, but what, Gavin, what material are your molds made from? Hard plastic, metal, or silicone?
Gavin, okay.
You don't have to heat polycarbonate, but make sure it's like when you give food to a baby, you should be room temperature. You don't want it too cold. And then pour it in. I strongly suggest you leave it for at least 30 minutes. I do an hour. And then I put it in the chiller. I put it in the fridge for 13.30 minutes. 15 is fine too. And then and then that's enough. But you can keep it in the chiller for longer if you want. But to get to I think the higher level of crystallization, I drop it in there and then I put it into a cool room. But not too soon. You want the chocolate to cool down in ambient temperatures because you don't want to accelerate crystallization too fast. Ideal temperature and humidity level for your conching area. Yeah, that's a good question. Hold on one second. I actually have it written down. Yeah, I keep the temperature. Yeah, then I thought I put it in. I keep the temperature. My settings are around 20 degrees Celsius, maybe a little bit higher. And the relative humidity, I put a dehumidifier on, and I just keep it running because again, humidity is your enemy. And I don't believe a room could be too dry. Don't add, if you're in a really dry environment, don't add humidity. Yeah, the company is, I thought I put it in. That's the name of the company. So wait, Nico, I typically pour at 30.5 degrees Celsius. I find if it's below 30%, it gets yeah, so okay, yes. That said, my rule of thumb of saying 30%, if it's 35 is fine. If you take it up to 45, that's fine. The main thing is, again, is you don't even really have to look at the temperature. You take it up to the point where the first temperature, where it melts everything. Because what you want to do is you want to completely break away all crystallization and have free floating fat particles. And then you want to cool it down to a point where it starts to get visibly. If any of you, Nico, have you ever tried tempering on a marble surface? Because that's a really good way to, yeah. You should try the marbling. I'll send you. I'm gonna add that to my list.
Yes,
it's a really good way to get
marbling for me is too messy. I just use the curve with just controlling the temperature with an ice bath, taking it out and a little bit down, just to make the curve of the temperature, because marbling
you use an ice pack, you said?
Yeah, an ice bath under the
no,
under the bowl,
you're cooling it down too quickly.
Okay.
The seed chocolate should be enough. Adding the seed chocolate in bit by bit, that should be enough to bring the temperature down. If you're doing 1 degree a minute Fahrenheit, you're good. If you speed it up, it ruins everything. So maybe that's
okay. So 1 degree at a minute. Perfect. Got it.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes. As slow. I mean, not as slow. Well, yes. Gavin, seed chocolate doesn't have. It's kind of weird. It doesn't really make sense. Seed chocolate isn't tempered, but what you're doing is by pulling it out early and having it harden, you're forcing it into the fifth step and ideally 6th step, but the crystallization of 5. So you are creating that crystallization in that little bit of chocolate, because the main thing is in the big vat of chocolate, to get a uniform tempering is almost impossible. A bowl shape, everything, the temperature differentiation across the whole mix isn't uniform. By adding in the seed chocolate, those little bits of seed chocolate have the crystallization 5 memory that it imparts on the rest of the chocolate. So it's more, so it gives a guarantee, it gives the best possible chance of having a uniform crystallization. Oh yes, Penny, the cocoa butter silk tempering. Fascinated by it. I tried it once many years ago, and I didn't see anything great about it. So what isn't broke, don't fix. So I never pursued that, but it seems like a really good alternative to the traditional chocolate tempering. So if you have the compunction to try that, do you have a sous vide? Do you have a way to make the silk chocolate? Oh, good. Yeah.
Max, I think, yeah, all the good things have to come to a temporary stop. I understand people have a lot of questions, but it's almost 12:30 because some people, like in Philippines, they are past midnight. So we have to respect the time of everybody. What we would suggest is, people still have questions, please send them to CocoaTown. We will send it to Max and then get the answers, and we will put it on a blog post, and we will also and send you the link so you can go and refer it. So all the people who attended this webinar, they will have access to all the question and answers, and also the webinar, everything. So we thank you for participating. Without the participants, the webinar is not successful. And
again, I can't reiterate. I have hundreds of white papers and peer-reviewed papers that address highly specific points of milk chocolate. So throw any question you have at me. I'll do the best I can to give you the answers, and I will get the names of those books for Bean to Bar. Definitely. Where are you located? Bean to Bar book.
I don't know, maybe they will send us.
Okay, well, like I said, please feel free to send. My ideology is that you share everything, because then everybody gets better, which makes you get better. Allison, no, I'm not on social media. I only started owning a cell phone this year.
And all of you, we just have one more request from you. please share your review of this webinar. That helps us, helps Max, and helps you to bring the good content for the future webinars. So with that, we thank you for your time. Max, do you want to add anything else?
No, like I said, I'm here to help. So please feel free to ask. Milk chocolate is awesome. All chocolate is awesome, but milk chocolate needs to have people like you making a version that is better than that sugary stuff that people claim to be milk chocolate, and let's get people in love with it again. Yeah, Gavin, I can give you the contacts in Brazil for the melanger. Are you in Brazil, Gavin?
Gavin is in the Philippines, I think.
Oh, you're in the Philippines. Where in the Philippines? Well, Makati,
Manila.
like, or are you near Salcedo Village?
Yeah, here.
You know, if you go to oh, Parañaque, yes, of course. Oh, Jay, good, you love milk chocolate. We need, the great thing about milk chocolate is you can make a dark chocolate-like milk chocolate. So you can make a smooth, creamy, that again, playing with the sugar, you can make a really chocolatey milk chocolate that will surprise the snobs. Any snob you have that says they never eat a milk chocolate, you can convert them.
Theresa?
𝗏𝗏. Gavin, my daughter was born in 𝗏𝗏.
Okay, Theresa, do you want to add?
Theresa, my chocolate creations are, we're building the facility right now. We aim to have them on the market initially in 500 stores starting end of the year. Oh yeah, using coconut milk. Again, it's that's an interesting thing to do. The one thing about coconut milk is it's not actually it's not a milk. So I would actually I would incorporate the coconut, the coconut fat as well.
Max, maybe it looks like we need to have one more webinar in a month or two after they come send all the questions. We can have a milk mystery part 2.
Now, also one thing about reducing the acidity of the cocoa, one thing I'm going to try is I'm gonna try to crush cocoa with eggshells, and because that with coffee it extrapolates the acidity. I haven't tried it yet, but I want to see if that will work.
So I think we are closing the.
Gerardo, loop me in with this problem of yours. I want to find a way to figure out how to fix it.
Max, I don't want to put you on the spot, but will you come back and do another webinar?
Sure.
It looks like you're quite a popular gent.
Yeah. Yeah, Estella. I will actually do research on non-dairy milk, especially because, again, in the market research that's been done, it is, like I said in the beginning, it's considered one of the major trends. If you can make a dairy-free product that comes close to a milk chocolate, you're golden. So yes, and coconut milk powder. Unfortunately, my access to coconut, good coconut milk isn't. But I'll look and see if I can find any studies done on it. I know that when you brew coffee with coconut water, it's fantastic. 𝗏𝗏. Say.
So, sorry guys, we need to close this webinar. Keep the questions coming by email. to info@CocoaTown.com, and we will pass on down to Max, and Max will be he's very nice to answer all your questions. So we will get the answers to your questions, and please remember to send your feedback, and then look forward to the interesting webinar on March 6th or 13th. We are having more webinars coming up. Thank you all.
And then also, anybody out there who wants to share your products with me, please do. I would love to taste what you make.
Okay.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Max.
Thanks,
you all.
everyone.
Awesome, Allison. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you all the
Cheers, everybody.
customers, all the attendees, everybody, big thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.